Robert Harrison sat in seat 2A, his gray suit perfectly pressed, his gold watch catching the soft cabin light. At 42, he had built an empire in commercial real estate, but the cost had been steep. The wine in his glass was expensive, the leather seat beneath him was comfortable, yet something felt hollow. It was Christmas Eve, and he was flying home to an empty penthouse. The businessman barely noticed when the flight attendant escorted a small boy down the aisle. The child couldn't have been more than 4 or 5 years old, wearing a red winter coat decorated with snowflakes, a striped knit cap pulled snug over his ears. He clutched a small stuffed penguin to his chest. His cheeks were still round with the softness of early childhood, his eyes wide and uncertain as he looked around the cabin full of strangers in business suits. The flight attendant, a kind woman with gentle eyes, spoke softly to Robert. "Sir, we have a situation. This is Tommy. He's traveling alone to see his grandmother for Christmas. There was a overbooking issue, and we need to seat him here in first class. Would you mind terribly?" Robert glanced at the boy, then at his laptop, then back at the attendant. He had reports to review, calls to make once they were in the air. But something in the child's face, the way he held that penguin like it was the only familiar thing in the world, made him nod. "Of course," he said quietly. The attendant helped Tommy into the seat, buckling him in with extra care. "You be good now, sweetheart. Mr. Harrison here will keep you company." She smiled at Robert with gratitude before moving away. For several minutes, neither spoke. Robert returned to his laptop while Tommy pressed his small hand against the window, watching the ground crew load luggage below. The boy's legs dangled well above the floor, and he swung them slowly, the way children do when they're trying to be patient. Then, in a voice so soft Robert almost missed it, Tommy said, "My penguin's name is Pepper." Robert looked over. The boy wasn't looking at him, still focused on the window, but there was something hopeful in the way he'd offered this information, like it was a gift. "Pepper," Robert repeated. "That's a fine name for a penguin. My mama gave him to me," Tommy continued, his voice taking on that matter-of-fact quality children have when sharing important truths. "Before she went to heaven, she said Pepper would keep me company when I miss her." Robert felt something shift in his chest. He closed his laptop slowly. "I see," he said, and then, more gently, "I bet Pepper is very good at his job." Tommy nodded seriously, hugging the penguin tighter. "He is. He doesn't talk much, but he's a good listener." The boy turned to look at Robert for the first time, really look at him. "Do you have anyone who listens to you?" The question was so innocent, so direct, that Robert found himself answering honestly. "No, son, I don't think I do." "That must be lonely," Tommy said, with the simple wisdom that children sometimes possess. "Mama used to say that everybody needs somebody. She said that's what makes us human. The people we love." Robert had spent 20 years building walls, constructing a life where he needed no one, where vulnerability was weakness and solitude was strength. Yet here was this small boy in a snowflake coat, seeing right through him with eyes that held more understanding than seemed possible. As the plane began to taxi, Tommy reached out his small hand and placed it on Robert's arm. Not grabbing, not demanding, just resting it there, a connection. "It's okay to be scared of flying," Tommy whispered. "I'm a little scared too, but Mama said when you're scared, it helps to have a friend." Robert wasn't scared of flying. He'd flown hundreds of times, circling the globe in pursuit of deals and profits. But he realized, in that moment, that he was scared of something much more fundamental. He was scared of the emptiness waiting for him at home. Scared that he'd traded all the wrong things for all the wrong reasons. "You know what, Tommy?" Robert said, his voice softer than it had been in years. "I think your mama was very wise." The boy smiled then, a genuine smile that lit up his whole face. "She was the wisest person in the whole world. She knew everything about everything, especially about people needing people." As the plane climbed into the winter sky, Robert found himself talking to Tommy about things he hadn't spoken of in decades, about his own mother, who had passed 10 years ago, about the little brother he'd lost touch with over some forgotten argument, about the life he'd planned once, full of family and Sunday dinners, that had somehow gotten away from him in the pursuit of something he thought was more important. Tommy listened with the attention only children can give, nodding in the right places, asking simple questions that somehow cut to the heart of things. And slowly, Robert felt something he hadn't felt in years. Not happiness exactly, but something like hope, the possibility that perhaps it wasn't too late, that perhaps he could still become the kind of man who had people who listened, who had someone to come home to. When the flight attendant brought Tommy apple juice and warm cookies, she brought Robert the same without asking. They sat together, this unlikely pair, sharing cookies and conversation as the plane carried them toward their destinations. "Will your grandmother be waiting for you?" Robert asked. "Yes," Tommy said, brightening. "Grandma gives the best hugs. She says hugs are the language of love, and you should never be stingy with them." He looked up at Robert thoughtfully. "I bet you could use a hug." Robert laughed, a real laugh that surprised him with its warmth. "I bet you're right." As they descended toward their destination, the city lights spreading below them like fallen stars, Tommy took Robert's hand in his small one. "Thank you for being my friend today," he said. "Pepper likes you too." "I can tell." Robert felt his throat tighten. He squeezed the small hand gently. "Thank you, Tommy. You've given me something I didn't know I needed." At the gate, Tommy's grandmother was waiting, a woman with silver hair and eyes full of love. She swept the boy into her arms, and Robert watched the embrace, seeing the truth in what the child had said. Hugs were the language of love. Before they left, Tommy turned back. He walked to Robert and, standing on tiptoe, wrapped his small arms around the businessman's waist. Robert bent down, returning the embrace, feeling something break open in his chest, something that had been frozen for far too long. "Remember," Tommy whispered, "everybody needs somebody." Robert stood alone in the terminal, watching them disappear into the crowd. Then, slowly, deliberately, he pulled out his phone. He scrolled to a number he hadn't called in 3 years. His brother's number. It rang twice before a familiar voice answered, cautious, surprised. "Robert." "Hey, Michael," Robert said, his voice thick with emotion. "I know it's been too long, but I was wondering, are you busy tomorrow for Christmas dinner?" There was a pause, and then his brother's voice, warm with forgiveness and joy. "For you, never too busy. Come home, Rob. We've missed you." As Robert walked through the terminal, he thought about a small boy in a red coat and his wise mother who understood that people need people. He thought about second chances and the courage it takes to reach out. He thought about going home, really home, to family and connection and love. Outside, snow had begun to fall, soft and gentle, covering the city in white. Robert raised his face to the sky, feeling the cold flakes on his skin, feeling alive in a way he hadn't in years. Everybody needs somebody. It was never too late to remember that truth, never too late to come home,